Okay, so just why discipleship groups? The church, our mission, and every church's mission is to make disciples. But when you think about like who is really the one that's supposed to do that, right? I think it's other disciples. It's disciples who are supposed to make disciples. It's not just the pastor, or like staff people or something like that, but it's something that has been given to every Christian, really. And yes, all that we do as part of the church is part of that, right? When we have worship service, when we have house church and Bible study, these things are all doing that as part of making disciples. But when we really meet one-to-one, I think there's more of an intentionality there, and just that fruit will come from that. And so, when we look at 2 Timothy 2, Paul, he said, the things that you, Timothy, have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to reliable people who will also be qualified to teach others. Paul is the greatest church planner ever. And he was like, I taught you things, Timothy. And it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to teach the next people, and I'm going to teach the next people, and I'm going to teach the next people because I'm the super, church planter and pastor. No, it's like he said, you teach the next guy, and you teach the next girl, and you teach the next person, right? It's that there's everybody having that role in it, and then there's another reason why. You've probably heard statistics of youth who grow up in the church, over 50% of youth. I've heard like over 70% of youth walking away from the church after high school, and so how do we fight that statistic? Well, Dr. Kara Powell of the Fuller Youth Institute, she researched a lot of thousands of students who have grown up in the church, and the ones that stayed, the number one reason that they continued their faith after high school, it was this idea of intergenerational relationships, right? And so when they had a meaningful spiritual relationship with someone older than them, someone who is not in the youth group, right? That was the number one factor in seeing students continue on in their faith after they go to college and go to the workplace and all these things, right? And so I'm hoping for our youth too that this will be very beneficial, and for everyone who's really involved. So how do we do that? And a lot of people, I appreciate the honesty. A lot of people are like, I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. I'm not sure, I've never really done it with anybody or seen it happen. And I know that makes it tough. And so to help with that, we're trying to do 2 trainings. Of course, the first one's tonight. And then tonight we'll talk about just building the relationship, with your disciplee, right? And so, because discipleship, it should really happen in the context of a relationship. Right. And so just talking about some of those things and some things to keep in mind with that. And then next month, September 16th, we'll get into the nitty gritty of reading the Bible together. We have a great resource called One-to-One Bible Reading. And it's a simple, effective, practical way that anybody, if you go through the training, I think you'll feel confident that you can like, hey, I can do this. I can do this. I can read the Bible with someone. Because if you have an amazing relationship with somebody, mentoring them and all that sort of thing, but you never get to the Word of God, that's not really discipleship. That's friendship. That's mentorship. But discipleship is more of a spiritual mentorship, right? It's like it is based upon the Bible. It has to be a relationship that is passing the Word on to the next generation. If we don't have the Word in there, then it's not truly discipleship, right? And so, some of you have asked, like, what are we committing to? Like, I'm not sure, like, how much I can commit and these sort of things. Well, and so want to share, like, one thing is we're asking, our expectation is that you commit to some of the meetings, right? Meeting with your disciplee. And I'm asking only that 6 times. Would you meet at least 6 times with your disciplee between now and May 2021? So end of the school year, it's about once a month, right? Or you could do it 6 weeks in a row, knock it out. That's the bare minimum. I hope that you guys, as you build that relationship, you would want to continue more than that. But I understand also that people have, other commitments and things. And so we're really grateful if even, having 6 meetings with another one. It could be online or in person. If you're not in Nashville, it could be online. Or some of the youth, the parents are still very worried about COVID. And so they may be more strict about letting their kids out, And so but in person would be best if possible. So 1, meeting at least 6 times. 2, attending these trainings, right? And so, it's a 2-part training, as mentioned above. And so some people said they couldn't be here, and so we're recording it and just asking that they would watch it later. And then lastly, that you would commit to attending the coaching, and so, we're having this monthly house of prayer time. It's the 3rd Wednesday of the month, and we'll keep sending reminders to people about it, but that you guys would meet with a coach that would give you some feedback and ongoing support. So you feel like, if you're like, hey, I'm stuck here, I'm not sure what to do, or man, this student will not respond to me. They're just ghosting me, man. What do I do? It just kind of where you don't feel like you're just on your own. But monthly during the house of prayer, we'll have a time where people can meet with with coaches. So I've asked several people to be coaches. So for college ladies, all you guys who are in college right now, Christina and Amy would be your coach, where during the house of prayer time was set aside some time where you guys can talk and meet and talk about how's it going with your discipling, right? College guys, I asked Sam Chong, to be that coach to give like feedback and support. With the young adult ladies, Heather will do that, and then for the young adult guys, right, that would be me, like trying to provide that. And so it's like we do it together and give each other support in that way. Okay, and then so let's go into the actual training of that. But I guess any questions up to that point? Okay, I'm gonna keep going up. And so what is the blessed training, the main part of this training? How do we build a relationship through that? A lot of this is common sense and things, but sometimes we will forget certain parts of it, and I think it's good to keep in mind. This is a training that many churches use, and it stands for begin with prayer, listen to their story, eat with them, serve their needs, and share scripture in house church. And I added one part to this. I wonder if you can guess which part, right? And so begin with prayer. What does that mean? It's having a dependency upon God. If you feel not the most confident, if you feel like you're not quite sure what to do, that's a good place to be if it turns you to God. If it turns you to be like, hey, God, unless you are with me in this, I know it's not going to succeed the way that you want it to. That's a good place to be. I think that's much better than someone who's like, oh, I got this, this is so easy, like I'm the man, I'm the woman. That kind of overconfidence or boastfulness, I think, is more detrimental. But if we start with prayer, that's what prayer does, right? It's saying that I can't control everything, Lord. I need you, God, right? It changes our spirit and having that dependency upon Him and not self-reliance. And then, listening to their story, right? So I would think that, I recommend first time you meet with your disciplee, either online or in person, maybe go out to take them out to eat food sometime, that this could be your whole first meeting. You don't even necessarily get into the word yet, but you just say, tell me about you. Tell me your story, right? And you just want to be listening to them. Some of the people that you disciple, maybe they'll be more shy, more quiet, or just give very short one-word answers, right? And it's like, I don't know what to talk about. It's like they're not talking. Well, one thing I learned from my missionary professor in seminary was like, you can ask the 5 F's, right? It stands for family, faith, food, festivals, fun, right? So he said, tell me about your family. Tell me about your parents. Do you have brothers and sisters? Tell me about your faith. What do you believe? When did you become a Christian? Oh, you're not a Christian. Tell me why not. Food. What's your favorite food? What do you like to eat? What do you not like to eat? Festivals or like holidays, right? Tell me like for near a holiday, what do you do for, Thanksgiving time? Or do you have any traditions, this sort of things? And then fun, what do you like to do for fun? What are you interested in? So those are, if you get stuck and you're in a conversation and it's like just awkward, no one's talking, right? Then you as the discipler you can try to draw out more by leading them in some of these things, especially the youth. It might be more helpful to have some of that. And then just keeping in mind more of a 50-50 conversation, right? I think in your mind, be thinking about like that are you just talking the whole time, right? Then that's not good, right? Or if they're just talking the whole time, that's not necessarily good either, but you want to be having, an even conversation. So they're knowing about you, you're knowing about them better, right? And then eating with them, I think this is crucial. If parents allow it, definitely try to eat together, right? It's like just eating together is just something fun you can do, and it just opens people up. It makes people more relaxed. It makes people more comfortable, and everyone likes good food, right? At New Life in Houston, a saying they have is always like, play before you pray. It's sort of like, if you just enjoy being with each other, whether you're eating or going bowling or something like that, like, just enjoy having fun together. And then that is a great context for moving into more spiritual minded things, right? And then the S, serve their needs, and so really having that servant heart, looking for opportunity, not just like, well, they didn't ask me, well, look and see if they, like, are they struggling with something? Is there anything you can help with? And just wanting to be there to serve them with whatever the needs that they might have. And then the last one, sharing scripture in house church, so that one will be the subject of next month's training, and so all for the next time we meet at House of Prayer, it will be all about that. How do we, go through the word together? Okay. Any questions there? It's pretty simple. I think it's pretty, a lot of it's common sense, but, it's just good rules of building relationships, and for single people out there, it's actually good dating practice too. You go to a date and you only talk about yourself the whole time, it might not be so helpful, but learning to ask questions about them and, serving it, so I think it's just good relationship practices and rules to keep in mind, and so that you can have a good grounds to leading in more spiritual things.
Hey, Pastor Dan, are you going to be sending this material out to us, or?
Yeah, so like this one, and we're gonna make it into like kind of like a handout. Thanks, Jim. That's a good question. And so we'll have, this is being recorded if anyone wants to look at it again, and we'll also just make it as like a very simple like handout as a resource, for people. This one and the next training too, so it could be like a quick glance at it, and if you think about it, like these are all ways to love somebody, right? Praying for somebody, taking an interest in them and trying to know more about them, eating with them, serving them, right? It's just all ways to show love to them, right? And so, yeah. Any other questions? Okay. And if you guys feel free to stop anytime if you guys get a question later. And so now, but things are a little bit different for youth. And so actually I'll ask Amy to make these notes and to share some special things to keep in mind when discipling with youth. Because they're younger, there are some things we should keep in mind. Right? Amy?
All right, so feel free to just ask me questions if I say something that's confusing, because I am quite tired today, so hopefully I make sense. But like, as the first point says, it's normal for the kids to either not talk very much at all, or for them to talk a lot. Either way, though, it's usually because they're anxious, not because they're comfortable. So like, for especially like college, you guys in college are going to be the ones mostly paired up with youth, but some young adults might be too if they choose. But like, if you do get a kid that for some reason is really talkative. That's not necessarily them saying that they're comfortable, and oftentimes it actually means that they're really anxious. And so a lot of times you won't actually really start to get to know them until they realize you're not just gonna like come once and then disappear, because it has happened to them in the past. So a lot of the kids are very guarded about like letting people really into what is going on for the first few meetings, just because they're used to people showing up at once and then never showing up again. You know, which is heartbreaking, but it has happened. And they're just overall very stressed about life. I think COVID is actually affecting them a lot more than it is any of us as adults. You know, going from being around hundreds of people a day to like just family. And like a couple of our kids are practically on house arrest. So it's been very, very stressful for them. And then in the second point, as you're going through like that one-to-one Bible reading plan thing with them that P-Dan's bought, there are questions that you might ask, but a lot of times the kids are not going to really actually have any questions in that moment. They'll be too scared to ask you. They'll be too nervous. They'll think they're stupid for needing to ask the question. So you might actually just have to guess what their questions are, or lead them, or just really just help them get there, but also realize that it will take sometimes a few days, if not a couple weeks, for them to actually be like, hey, I'm confused about this, or I need help understanding this. And a lot of that is just because most of our youth kids are very insecure, even if they don't appear it. Like a lot of our kids do call me at like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, because they're freaking out about life. And they don't trust people to like help them with that. So it might take you a little bit of texting them back right away, or like that day, for them to like really start to trust you with questions. You know, and whenever they do have questions, making sure that you don't accidentally make them feel like they're stupid. Because some of them, just because they have a question, they immediately assume they're dumb, which is not true, obviously, but not obvious to our kids. And then the final point, which I think is actually the biggest point, is like, if you want the kids to be vulnerable and you want them to open up and you want them to just talk more and be real with you, you're going to have to be able to do that yourself. Like a good rule of thumb, I say this anytime I'm on a mission trip with people or whatever, but whatever you want them to do or you want to see them do or whatever, it's almost like internally you have to process like you need to show that twice as much. So like, if you want a kid to be vulnerable and open and real, you also have to be vulnerable, open, and real within appropriate boundaries, obviously. But our kids can actually handle a lot more than they're told. Like most of the youth group knows that I've gone through abuse, but they don't know the details of that abuse. You know, you don't need to shy away from those kind of things. Just they don't need to know the gritty details and like take away their innocence in a sense, because some of our kids have been hurt, but they might just not tell anybody, whether it's abuse or whether it's just like pains of life, you know? So if you are discipling these kids and you're getting frustrated with like, oh, they won't talk or they won't open up or they're just not being real or they're just closing off or something, a good way to see, a good question to ask yourself is, am I open? Am I real with them? Am I being vulnerable? Because with the youth. If you aren't, they definitely will not be, because it shows them they can't trust you. So while in all discipleship, you're trying to earn trust, with the youth, you're really trying to earn trust and safety, making them feel safe, because, I don't know, the common problem in our youth group is depression and anxiety. I can guarantee you almost 100% of our kids have depression and or anxiety. So they have a very strong need overall to just feel accepted, safe, and that they can trust you. I hope that makes sense. So, yeah. Done. Unless you have questions, I'm done.
You have a question for Amy?
Wait, is six times till May 2021 enough though? Then
It's a very, like, hopefully it'll be more than that, but that's the minimum we're asking for,
I will say, when it comes to youth, you might not be able to meet them 6 times, but you can text them a lot. You can message them a lot, whether it's Instagram, Katalk, or FaceTime, or whatever it is, because their parents are a lot more strict on sending them out into the world, or like making them go to piano practice or things like that that pack up their schedules. But you'd be surprised with a youth kid how much a text message actually will mean. A lot of my kids will actually text me when they're in the middle of something that they cannot seem to handle, because they're not in a setting where they're able to talk, or they're too scared to talk. Like, you always want to try to talk to them face to face, but a text message goes a long way. But also, an ignored text message goes a long way in the wrong direction as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you.
So, quick question: whenever we're addressing some of these concerns that youth have, there is a fine line between what we can do versus getting someone else involved from a professional perspective. So, I mean, how far do we get to where, we need to get someone else involved?
Well, definitely, if you suspect abuse of any kind, that's a legal issue. So that comes out immediately. But
I mean, like suicidal tendencies, or, I mean, how serious are we going to take a lot of the, I think that was one of the biggest things in regards to the COVID, and also, going back to school and such. So, I mean, if as soon as someone speaks of suicidal tendencies, do we at that point engage someone else, or?
Well, if you definitely find one of my kids to be suicidal, please tell me, because I'm actually trained in counseling in those kind of areas. And then we can evaluate whether it's like they just occasionally think about it, or they're making plans, because if they're making plans, then it's very much a legal-ish kind of issue as well. Because we definitely don't want our kids to be like hurting themselves. But we also don't want to like involve people and make it blow out of proportion. So if you do suspect like a kid is kind of playing with the idea, please let me know, and let them know that like I'm here to counsel them. I do actually counsel a few of our kids already, because things have gotten there before. So, but for the most part, I don't think you will very much encounter that at this moment, because the ones that seem to lean that way, I am already counseling. If if that makes sense. But if you do happen to encounter it, just let me know, and we can evaluate together what like should be done next, whether that's just getting them in counseling with me or somebody else, or you know, informing parents that it's actually a serious problem and helping parents understand, because we've had to have those talks too before. So yeah, if you just, in general, if you don't know what to do, just please ask me. And some of it could be new, and I might not have an answer immediately, but we can definitely figure it out, me, P. Dan, and whoever is discovering this new dilemma.
And then we also have connections to a local biblical counseling center that they're the ones who's training Amy, and they're, you know, definitely, they also give a lot of, you know, direction, like here, this, I recommend this or that, you know. And then, and I guess kind of going back to what Sam asked about the 6 meetings, you know, it's, yeah, by all means, like if you guys, you and your disciplee want to meet more often, you want to meet every week, I mean, that's up to y'all, you know. I'm just saying the minimum, you know, we're asking is 6, and then I sure hope that people would want to meet more often, maybe every other week, or what your schedule out, or maybe weekly for a season, and then less later, and then again more often, you know. So it's up to you guys to decide together. Okay. Yeah. And so going to next.
Oh, wait, but sorry, another question. But isn't that going to be tough? Because then, not to say, because technically it's not like still standard. Like if one person literally meets 6 times during that whole time versus someone that meets weekly and people talk, like doesn't that kind of look bad on the disciple? Even though, I don't know, it's kind of a weird. I don't know. It feels weird. It feels like, oh.
Well, the main purpose was, you know, that to give people that people can kind of take that step into it without feeling like a huge commitment, you know, and
sure.
That it's okay, that we're not going to shame you that if you stopped at 6, but we're thankful that you did give some time, you know, to doing that, right?
Sure.
And so, yeah, that's kind of the main thing. Okay. Okay.
Also, one more thing for like my youth kids, and honestly, generally with anybody you're discipling, even if they're not a youth kid, if you realize that one of your disciplees is coming to you and they seem to have like the same problem every time you're talking, like you're noticing that they're dealing with anxiety, you're noticing they're dealing with fear or depression or whatever thing, and you just want to like bonus points prep yourself a little better biblically on it, please let me know, because I do have like little 20-page booklets that you can use and read yourself, to like just kind of prep you a little better for those kind of like how to counsel them, like disciple them biblically, not counsel, disciple, you know.
Yeah, they have a lot of topical biblical booklets, like about like depression. What does the Bible say about depression, anxiety, you know, all these
anger problems, things crazy.
Yeah. And if you
anything
can equip you, and you know, and so, and this is our first go around, so like, you know, maybe some of the concerns you say, Sam, you know, may become an issue later, and that's fine. You know, we'll make adjustments. You know, we'll listen to feedback, and then maybe we have an adjustment for next time too. You know, but it's just kind of trying it out for the first time, and I am at this point like hoping that put a cap on it, that the discipling relationship would be for the year, and then so that too people don't feel like it's a forever commitment. You know, it's like, okay, like yeah, I gotta keep doing this forever. You know, but like that the friendship would be forever, but the actual meeting, going through the Bible together, you know, with that person would be for the end of the school year, you know. Okay. And okay, so, you know, some people asked about the matching process. All right, so I have a Google registration form, and in that form, you know, asking for people to indicate, you know, their preferences. So I put a list of from middle school all the way up to adults, and that, all the people's names, and just asking, hey, if you want to disciple someone and you have a preference, name, check 3 people, 3 boxes that you would prefer to be paired with one of them. And if you want someone to disciple you, check 3 people who are older than you that you would prefer that you could be paired with them. But we make it clear that like we can't guarantee for everyone, so it's like we'll try to match everyone, to their preferences, but it may not work out logistically. And then we also have a part where we say, tell us some of your interests. Tell us what are you studying? What kind of work do you do? What do you like to do for fun? And then that too will give us some indication, like how to, maybe there's some people who have some common ground. We can match them together, and so, and then once we have all of those, we'll perfectly try to match the people together, and so next before the next training, there's a few things we're asking people to do. Read, listen, and register, okay? So I got resources for everybody, right? So this first one is called One-to-One Bible Reading. It might be backwards for y'all, but it's called One-to-One Bible Reading by David Helm. It's a very short booklet, and asking everyone to read pages 70 to 38. It's just about 30 pages. By the next time, it's very simple, easy read. But if you read this book thoroughly, you will feel pretty confident, like, hey, I can do this. I know what to do. He goes through all the details of it, and then there's a audio training based upon this book of someone explaining how they would do it. And it's just 18 minutes long, and we'll send the link, the YouTube link for that. It's just a YouTube audio link, okay? And then we ask that you fill out that Google registration form. And so both of these, the audio link and the form, we'll email it to you guys, probably tonight, okay? And then also, in addition to this booklet, we have another resource for y'all. Okay, we ordered study Bibles for everyone. It's the NIV Compact Study Bible. Ooh, right? And it's like, but I think it's pretty nice. It's a nice small size, and if you don't have a study Bible, every Christian needs a study Bible. It has, the notes are super helpful, and especially if you're reading through the Bible together and you're like, who is this? Or what is this place? Or what does that mean? A lot of the notes will give you good direction in understanding that. And you have like the topical concordance in the back. So again, what does the Bible say about depression? What does the Bible say about anger? And these sort of things, you can look up verses based upon that as well. And so we have these for every single person ordered already, and had asked the shepherds to help deliver them to our people in our house church, and so we'll be getting those out to you guys pretty soon. Okay, any questions about that? So those are 3 things by September 16th, we'll send a email reminder about that too, just to clarify, and having those links. But the idea is that if you read the book, listen to the audio, then by the time we get to the training, it's just going to be a little bit of pointers, but you should have a pretty good idea of what to do by then. And it's a great training. It's very proven, method.